Jim Inhofe, Senator from Oklahoma, back with us on the Common Sense Club. Senator, how are you?
Hey, good, Scott. I had to run and vote. I'm sorry I'm a minute late.
Not a problem at all. We got to get you. If you're not voting, we're in big trouble in the United States Senate. So we always
You got that right.
we want you to know that. I was telling the audience that you unearthed some more thuggery from the Obama administration here in their pressuring of defense contractors. Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Well,
here.
you know, I can't believe, and I don't think any of your listeners would I'll probably lose my credibility here, for the President of the United States through his Labor Department to communicate with these guys and tell them they are not to issue their pink slips, that they don't come under the Warren Act, and they had no reason to say that. And it's very clear. I want to go ahead and just read this to you, if it's all right, straight from the law. It says, Section 3 of the Worker Adjustment Retention Law Act of 1988 is clear. Notice required before plant closings and layoffs. Notice to employees, state dislocation worker units, and local governments. An employer shall not order a plant closing or mass layoff until the end of a 60-day period after the employer serves written notice. Now, what that means is that the magic date here is January 2nd. So that means November 2nd, 5 days before the election. Well, when the Obama people found that out, they started making phone calls. And when I was over at the Farnborough Air Show, I talked to a lot of defense contractors who are over there, and they'd been contacted by the administration to ignore the warrant off. In other words, break the law. But you talk about the great disservice they're doing. Lockheed Martin has talked about perhaps having to send out 120,000 pink slips. Now, the second thing, and this is what nobody understands, in the Warren Act, it sets that any employer who orders a plant closing or massive layoff in violation of Section 3 shall be liable to each aggrieved employee who suffers an employment loss as a result of such closing or layoff. Now, what he's saying is that is a trial lawyer's dream, a class action suit. You go in there and have 120,000 people. Let's say that they get $1,000 apiece. That'd be $120 million. And what the president is doing is trying to get these companies to risk that. Now, Scott,
he wants them to ignore the law, put themselves at legal peril, all because he's worried about a political problem days before the election that are a result of sequestration. We should talk about why these layoffs are necessary.
Yeah. And it's just directly disobeying the law, and it's with no regard for what's going to happen to the company. I mean, in the case of Lockheed Martin, it could be 100, maybe $200 million. But nonetheless, that's what we have to remind them. Now, as I mentioned to you, I talked to a lot of the CEOs that were over there at this big air show, and they had all been, not all, but a lot of them had been contacted in a very cautious way. If you really want them to not comply with the law. Anyway, that's a big deal down there, and I don't think he can be successful. If you, Scott, were on the board of directors of any of these companies, you would be outraged and you would fire the management if they didn't comply with the Warren Act, right?
Of course, yes. Yeah. I mean, it's more thuggery. Again, it's labeled a guidance to the states, and I'm as concerned about the usual tricks from the Obama administration, and glad you've, as usual, blown the whistle on this so we can know about it. These companies now feel free to come out and say, hey, wait a minute here, we see the law differently than you do. But why is it necessary? Why, the kicking the can down the road here by this administration on budget cuts is one of the reasons those layoffs are necessary. And what's that going to do to our national defense?
Well, of course, the national defense, that's another thing altogether, because this president has, I think you and I talked about this before, his first budget, I went over to Afghanistan because I wanted to get the attention of the American people to let them know what this president is doing. And if you'll remember, that first budget's the one where they did away with the only fifth-generation fighter, the F-22, they did away with our lift capacity, the C-17, did away with our future combat system, killed the ground-based interceptor in Poland, which makes us subject to a missile coming in from Iran. He did all that just 1 year. Now, if you take everything that he's done in his four budgets, not only did he increase the deficit by $5.3 trillion, more deficit than all presidents in the history of this country, but he did away, he's disarming America. By his own admission, the budget that he has projected for 10 years takes $500 billion out of the defense budget. And then if he goes through with the Obama sequestration, which right now he's saying he's going to, that's another $500 billion. Even his own Secretary of Defense, Scott, said that this is it's devastating to the military. And so it takes a lot of courage for Panetta to make a statement like that, but that's what's happening right now. By the way, can I just take a second to do it? I introduced a bill yesterday because everyone talks about how difficult it is to come up with $1.2 trillion. It's not difficult at all, but do you want me to tell you what I did?
Yeah, we have a minute, and I do, because you're doing what he hasn't done. He's kicked the can down the road. You're trying to prevent these cuts to defense with some good common sense spending cuts.
What I'm going to do is just say we can put ourselves back into our defense being 4% of our GDP, at the same time come up with the additional $1.2 trillion. I'm going to send this to you so you can look at it, and then as your program progresses, you can see how simple this is to get it done. The only thing that people don't understand is that all this climate change garbage that they've been doing through regulations, that's so far added up to $68.4 billion. And so I'm going to send this to you so you'll have all this information.
No, I love it. The best part of it is it repeals Obamacare, which saves us $1.1 trillion. There's still cuts to non-defense discretionary spending. That's down to 2006 levels. Great idea. Block grant program for food stamps saves $285 billion and reduces the size of the federal workforce by 10% through natural attrition. That's $144 billion. A lot of common sense in this, Senator. Keep it up, my friend. Good to talk to you. Okay.
Good. Tell Harold Hamm hello.
Will do. All right. We'll continue with more of the Common Sense Club after this.